to hear from both Lakshmi and Yoni on this. Why can't we measure that? Why are indicators such a barrier and a challenge to institutionalizing some of these in the frameworks? What is actually holding that up?
No, I think now we shouldn't really be thinking about anything holding us up. We still have to shape what's coming up as the post-2015 development framework. And we have a whole host of, and if I may just go back a little bit to your other question about how do we get it right, this whole issue of men engaging, how do we get it right? I think the first and foremost thing is to link up that engagement to the normative frameworks that have been there and which are very rich, even on how men should engage. It's all laid down in the Commission on Status of Women agreed conclusions, in other, and you have developed your own playbook, like we have done in the case of He for She, and which we are still developing through dialogue in the context of He for She, with all those who sign up. So I think that's something, and you are absolutely right, moving from them, from He for She to everyone around. So that is something that we must continue to do, and that's the basis on which we also build the indicators. That's why I'm referring to that. Mm-hmm. We build the indicators on the normative framework, on the normative issues that have, in fact, I had a whole host of things all set out, but we can use that in not only the gender goal, but in other goals. And in other targets like peaceful societies. And I'm glad you mentioned this whole issue of peace and security and the role of men and boys in the context of gender equality and women. In situations of conflict and post-conflict, that's also something that 1325 and the Women, Peace and Security resolutions in the UN Security Council also address the issue of what role men have in the context of peace and security. So there are a number of these normative, normative resolutions and others that you can draw upon to define the indicators. And as I said, some will be perception-based, and member states are very, they really balk at these perception-based indicators. So we have to develop some of the more concrete targets that we can really use for monitoring purposes, for data collection, all of that measurability aspects, and also for showing impact of and transformation. I think those are really critical, that any indicators that we have, we had a big job in, and unpaid care work is a very important area of the junction between feminism and masculinity, masculinity and men engagement. Now that was a very difficult case to sell to member states. I remember one of the chairs of the facilitators of the Open Working Group even asking, so what are you asking? When you are saying reduce, redistribute, and provision unpaid care work and value it, are you saying that we should provide washing machines to all women who work at home or who stay at home, so or that are you going to ask the so-called breadwinners to stay back? So all of that. So this was the level, but we moved from that, and this is one of the most transformative elements of this draft gender goal, and we hope it remains, and all of you must work to see that it remains.
Great. Yoni, a couple of points on indicators, maybe?
Yeah, I think that this is a little bit of a technical discussion, actually. The target that was on the table was on engaging men and boys. And that in and by itself, as a language thing, it's not measurable, like engagement. It's difficult to measure. On the other hand, there is now a fantastic target on ending discrimination, which it's so valuable that is in there. So ending any form of discrimination. When you think of that in a technical way, how do you measure ending discrimination? So that's also, in a sense, like engaging men and boys is not measurable. It's not actually a reason to take the whole target out, I think. But I do think that when you are getting deeper into the matter, the thing is that you want to have it measured. And for that, you need the indicators. And for example, when we look at the target on eliminating discrimination, one of the things that you can talk about is how many men and boys actually have access to comprehensive sexuality education. Because that is where we are talking about the socialization of men and boys. There you can talk about unequal power relations. You can even enter human rights-based language in there. And then when you get a bit closer to things that are measurable, like men in taking up caregiving roles. You can actually, for example, measure how many men are accompanying their pregnant partner to prenatal visits. If it was in a specific country 20% at one point, then you may want to get it up to 30%, 40%, 50%, or 100%, of course, in the end. So by using the language in the indicators, enhance men's involvement, engagement in these visits, in comprehensive sexuality education, in gender-based violence prevention programs, you can make it measurable. You can go from 10 to 20 to 100. So.
And if I might just jump in and say, look, I think that's so powerful. The key thing is across all the indicators, they have to be disaggregated. They must be disaggregated by gender and all prohibited grounds of discrimination. This is not a univariable issue. It is also about class, it's also about ethnicity, it's also about sexual orientation, it's also about age. And we have to make sure that whatever the indicators are, they are disaggregated on the prohibited grounds of discrimination.
Yes, very much so. And we're not going to have time to get to all of these things that I still have 3 pages of lists of questions for you here. But I wonder if our volunteers are ready with the handheld microphones. I think we have time for probably 2 to 3 brief, focused comments, and then I would like our panel to have an opportunity to wrap up. So the first hand that I saw is here. If you could please rise and state your name as well, that would be helpful for the panel.
No, I think that for last 2 days and today's plenaries also, why men and women whose houses have got no doorbells and cannot have doorbells, this whole 80-90% men and women, and their question of men engaging, their question of women's liberation, women's rights are excluded from the discussion. Why this? Secondly, there is a complacency in the discussion. Why it is when, even in this country where we are sitting, the rapes are on the rise, women's atrocities are on the rise. For last 20 years, it is not going downhill, it is going uphill. And sustainability also is going downhill, may it be agriculture, may it be industry. So why we are so complacent about it?
Okay, we're going to take about 2 more comments, and I see a hand over here. We'll go here first.
Hi, thank you all for being here. Is this on?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You might have to just project a bit.
Yeah, so my question has to do with this rights discourse and the rights movement. It seems to me that over the past 20, 30 years, we've seen this proliferation of judicial legal choices. But what seems to me to be a diminishment in the actual material conditions that allow those choices to happen. So my question is, given that for example, in India, this rampant capitalism has displaced thousands of people and continues to do so. How in Palestine, how Israel continues to destroy the lives of Palestinians. In the U.S., how people continue to be incarcerated at such high levels. Why, even though we have all of these rights, how can you reconcile having these things and yet not having the material rights, the rights to perhaps food, shelter, water, whatever, that allow these things to happen? So how can we reconcile having all of these rights and not having material conditions for that? And what can we do for that?
Good question. We'll take one more. I think there's...
Thank you so much. I just want to say to this, the lady, I don't know her name, but she's the last speaker.
Kate?
Powerful. But that's not why I stood up. I want to say, what do we do about the so-called, and I like your languaging, reframing, what you call the so-called men's, okay, thank you. You see men care, you see. Yeah. One is looking well after the disabled, yeah. So what I'm saying is that, what do we do with the so-called men's rights groups? And I like your language when you said, it's about power. But my question then is, do we meet with them? And in the organization I work for, Socalled Gender Justice in South Africa, we're talking about this. Do we meet with them, or we don't talk to them? What do we do? Because when we engage them, do we legitimize them? Do we authenticate them? Or we just make them irrelevant? What do we do? It would be interesting to find out. Thanks.
Okay, we'll have a breakout session on that one, because that's the story of my life right now, and I would love to talk to you more about that.
If I could be allowed just to add a thought to this question. My name is Markus Teunert. I am the president of the Swiss Umbrella Association of Progressive Men's and Fathers Organizations. And I wanted to say something like, for us it's a very crucial question how to handle the angry man. And we came to the conclusion that just being angry is not an appropriate criterion to exclude men from our movement, because men have good reasons being angry in a patriarchal system, as well as women, as well as children. So we can't just cut the bridge to the angry man. We have to cut the bridge to the men who are not believing in equality and not paying respect. But we have to build bridges to convince the angry man that they win too, if we make progresses in gender equality.
Thank you. Okay, so we will book another 2 or 3 hours to try to answer all those questions about the rights gap. I saw a great quote the other day. Why are we even arguing about women's rights or right to choose when rights are inalienable? They're not arguable. They're there. They are universal. As well, I'm gonna paraphrase Alan Gregg, who I heard in a panel yesterday on the kind of structural and the intersectional challenges. He said it's not like all these issues come together and just meet at a subway station and chat. They're bound together. They're linked together. We cannot deal with gender equality without looking at poverty, without looking at militarization, without looking at all of these things.
If I might just say, I think it's very powerful to think about different economic models. The thing is, we haven't found one that works yet for us all. And even when we list the material conditions, how often do we forget that whether your stomach is full or empty, a rape is a rape is a rape. And whether or not you have access to education, if you have no access to contraception, that is a material condition that's unacceptable. And it is the problem that we've even gendered material conditions. We've even gendered material conditions. So we know there is no material here and rights there. On the contrary, there are rights upheld and rights violated, whether it's for water, for sanitation, for food, for contraception, or to give birth with a skilled attendance and not lose your life in giving life. Yes. The material conditions matter a lot because, as Lakshmi said, it's about physical as well as mental integrity. But don't think that there's sexual and reproductive health over there and poverty and hunger over there. That is not the way people live their lives. It's certainly not the way we want to relate to the human condition. Human rights are those things no one can take from you. Exactly. Human rights are those things no one can take from you. And actually, what we want to do with men's rights is relabel them as being in relation to women's rights. We want a men's rights discourse. We want a men's rights movement. But the way I hold my rights is all about the way I respect your rights. And that's the sort of rights movement we need.
So, brilliant, Kate. I'd like to, we have 2 minutes left. I'm going to ask one question quickly of everybody here. I want to take up Lakshmi's call that there is an opportunity and an urgency to the conversation that we're having right now. There is a chance to input, but something that we haven't also reflected on, that progress is not guaranteed. Progress requires all of us to step up and do our parts. We've seen over the past couple of years at CSW the increasing resistance to negotiated conclusions, to roadblocks, to distraction and obfuscation. So I want to ask each of you a two-part question, and we'll go from Yoni down to the end. Are you hopeful, and what should we do about it?
Yeah, I am incredibly hopeful. I mean, I think this event shows how hopeful we all should be. And I'm doing a lot of advocacy work at the United Nations, and what I've seen in the past couple of years, yes, there is increasing resistance, but yes, there's also an increasing movement, visible movement, who is working on human rights language, who's working on gender equality language. And I mean, the numbers have just been so incredibly powerful of us doing the work together over there. Like literally, when the agreed conclusions of the Commission on the Status of Women were adopted, there was like 200 women and some men standing up and applauding. I think that we can do that, and this is like an invitation to everybody here. Join us and join Men Engage in doing this advocacy work, because what I've seen is that numbers really count. So yes, I'm hopeful. Yeah.
Vandana, are you hopeful, and what?
Well,
what
these last 2 days, my hopes have raised because of what I have heard and learned and listened to in these 2 days. But what I feel is that the biggest challenge is the backlash of men who continue to question gender equality. And also, there's no dearth of men who engage in gender equality. But how do they engage? Most in a protectionist approach. We are doing a favor. So how do we bring that transformative change from a more favor and protectionist approach to a stakeholder? That is, I think, the key critical question that we need to change. And I'm hopeful.
Great. Hopeful?
Absolutely. And as I think our other colleagues have been emphasizing, UN Women's DNA is about hope. Hope that we will achieve gender equality and women's empowerment latest by 2030. And of course, this discourse, this dialogue, this questioning of all that we do and on engagement of men and boys is a very important part of realizing that hope. And in that, I would say, we will have to not only draw upon and ride and shape this big opportunity moment, normatively speaking, globally, and in different countries like India. It's a very, very important moment even in India. Never before have gender equality issues and women's empowerment issues, whether they came in from the entry point of ending violence against women, or whether they came in from political side or economic side, those issues have really come to the fore now. And even politically, people have engaged for the first time. So I think first time in many decades, since I would say the freedom movement, and as we were defining our nationhood, we were engaged with it, but somewhere we seem to have lost it, but now it's coming back. So it's really a big opportunity moment even now, here in India. So at every level, this is a big opportunity moment, normatively, and you must join that. Secondly, it is also a big opportunity moment to build a strong knowledge base, evidence, data around this project. Third, we must have policies and institutions building on and imbued by the gender equality and women's empowerment project and ideas, both as rights, but also as a means to attaining development of well-being, even at the individual level. You know, you always keep asking this question about zero-sum game, or is it a positive-sum game? I think we have to continue. Yes, there will be interim so-called disruptions or transfer of entitlements or privileges or power or jobs, but I think the enlightened positive-sum game must be, the case for that must be built, and including in dealing with the men's rights movement.
Right.
And lastly, I would say there is no substitute, and that's also a matter of hope, that we build a global solidarity movement at the people's level, because only then can we really realize that hope.
Great. Ambassador, hopeful? What can we do?
Yes, I think it is our duty to be hopeful. I mean, but I, at the same time, I think it is very important not to be in denial about the forces that want to see a backlash. I mean, that's a reality also. But at the moment, we have a lot of opportunities before us, you know, celebrating Beijing and with the post-2015. These are very important opportunities to engage also people at the political level that are the decision makers. And also with, I really think that UN Women and the He4C, that's also an opportunity from the UN, I mean, really to spread out the word and engage people both from the highest political level and at the grassroots level, because also social media has also given us an opportunity to really engage people. Thanks.
Great. Kate, last to you.
Thank you. Pessimism is not an option. It's not a choice on the table. It's clear that we need more deviance. We need more deviance. And we need people to be proudly deviant from the norm. The norm is too small for the rich diversity of the human condition. And let us celebrate deviation and positive deviation from the norm. Secondly, we need more disruptive discourse in the dismantling of discrimination. And in that discourse, we must build in space for dissent. We do not have to agree. We do have to be tolerant. And that's the boundaries of the consensus, is we express ourselves within that rich and diverse space that tolerance enables us. But we need to be disruptive. We must not continue to accept incremental change. We need disruptive change. And therefore, I would love to see us bring this conversation out of the margins of the gentility of this meeting. And it's a very, I must say, it's a terribly polite meeting. And I'm clearly terribly polite myself. But you know what I mean. We're being very disciplined and very kind, and so we should be. I mean, we are exemplary. I hope the world ends up just like this. But you just walk outside and you know how far away. I mean, maybe we are a little too deviant, far away. So I want us to bring this in from the margins and make mobilisation not a marginal challenge but a mainstream challenge. I want to see it in Tahrir Square. I want to see it in Taksim Square and on the streets of Hong Kong. And in that regard, I hope that we will use all our disciplines, including data, as a means, not an end. We don't actually need more information. We know it's bad, people. Oh, yeah. We know it's bad. And so we also have to remain very urgent and we have to remain with the urgency of it. This is about preventable human suffering. We can prevent it. Therefore, it's inexcusable. Yes. And we have to stay in that visceral place.
Yes.
Very profoundly.
Yes. So, fantastic. So there's, before I thank the panel, there's a deliberate reasoning to asking about hope and action, right? Because the challenge now to all of you is, what are we going to do about it? Yeah. We are the ones in that margin right now. And a very wise woman once told me, hope is not a strategy. So let's get off of our chairs, let's get into our action mode and get out there and take advantage of these opportunities and help make these changes happen in the way that we know they should to make a better, safer world for everyone. So thank you to all of our panel, thank you to all of you, and enjoy the next couple of days.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you to all the panelists for a very interesting discussion. I hope all of you enjoy the evening. And please do remember, all of you who still have presentations, those of you who will still be moderating sessions, please do contact the Secretariat team in the room called Chinar. You may obtain your speaker packs for the sessions and upload your presentations. So moderators and speakers, please do contact the Secretariat at Chinar. Thank you.
Sorry, I got so caught up in this panel that I actually forgot I also had to make an announcement like this. Some of you have been asking about the Delhi call to action and how is that being drafted. So I just want to share with you. Okay, so Jashodhara has just informed me that she will do an announcement about that tomorrow morning. Yes, yes. So we have agreed as the drafting committee to share a first draft, in fact, over the listserv. And that will come this evening. And then if you want to reply to that, please do so by 11 tomorrow morning. And another update will follow tomorrow morning in the plenary that Jashodhara is going to give you. Thank you.